Well, energy prices may be zapping our energy, but next to a man who is using a lot of his energy at the moment, trying to bring two bears in from Russia. But it's not the first challenge Killian McLaughlin, owner of Wild Ireland in Donegal, has faced. In setting up his wildlife park, he faced massive financial challenges, red tape, and spiralling construction costs. Then, just after opening, the gates COVID hit. So, how's business now? We dropped into Wild Ireland to find out. So we're here now. Killian McLaughlin, this is your place.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
You're very welcome.
It looks absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Wild Ireland, I already sort of feel, and I'm only just at the entrance, that I'm in a bit of a wild place with the sounds and everything.
Yes, it's a beautiful Celtic rainforest that we've built Wild Ireland in here. And would you like to come in, sure, and I'll show you around?
Absolutely. Lead the way.
We built this in a very sympathetic way towards the forest, so you'll notice that the paths here go around the trees. You see our waterfall and our pond here in the background, and we've kept as much of the natural foliage as possible, and of course it's created an amazing habitat for wild birds, which you can hear all around us.
Setting up a wildlife park like this here in Donegal, it's an unusual idea. Was it always a dream of yours?
Ever since I was a little boy, yeah, this is what I wanted to do. I've always worked with wildlife. Our house in Buncrana was a menagerie of wild animals, waifs or strays from all over the country that had nowhere to go and ended up living in our back garden. So, and I guess from there the dream grew to create a wildlife sanctuary for animals that were once native to Ireland and have since gone extinct.
So when you were a kid, did you have pets? Did you have unusual pets?
I did indeed, yeah. There were all sorts of animals there, everything from monkeys to snakes, and then common animals like foxes and crows.
Did you have a pet crow?
I did indeed, yeah. His name was Jack, and he was a jackdaw, and he was a little orphan that fell out of a nest. I actually hand raised him whilst I was doing my junior cert, so when most kids were going to study between their exams, I was legging it out the school gates as fast as I could to get home to feed the little baby crow, because he needed fed every 2 hours, and the junior cert exams were about 2 hours, and he came on fantastic. He never lived in a cage. He used to fly around the whole town of Buncrana. He was quite a famous little bird, and of course then he learned how to speak. Not many people know that crows are actually excellent mimics, like parrots. He learned to say hello. He could say his own name, Jack. He could say what, which was very handy when I used to not be able to find him in the evening times, and I'd go outside and I'd roar Jack, and you'd hear what, and then he would fly over the hedge into my mum's garden, and he would get his supper. He made the headlines a few times, and then Nationwide picked him up, and I never forget the morning the TV cameras arrived and Jack was nowhere to be seen, and here was me, about 16, 17 year old, trying to convince these TV
They didn't believe you
that I had a crow that could talk. There was no sign of him, and I sat down and I started to talk to the camera and tell them about Jack and try to convince them that this was a real bird and I wasn't crazy. And all of a sudden he flew onto my shoulder and he looked at the camera and he said hello, and it was just absolute gold.
TV gold.
Absolutely, yeah.
You mentioned about monkeys there. Did you have pet monkeys?
Yeah. Well, they were rescues as well. There was one, Susie, who's now in her 30s, believe it or not.
And she's still alive. You said she's
alive,
in her 30s.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they can live well into their 30s, yeah. So she's an old lady now.
Is she here?
She's not here, no. She lives with a troop of monkeys at home, but we do have monkeys here.
Can we go and have a look at those?
Of course, yeah.
So here we are. I see a couple of monkeys there, Killian.
Yes, we have a family of 4 here at the moment. These are Barbary macaques. They're a species of monkey that hails from the Atlas Mountains in North Africa. They're also found in Gibraltar. They're the only free-living monkey species in Europe, apart from ourselves. So we have a little family of them here. As you know, a lot of the animals here are rescue animals. And over the years we've rescued Barbary macaques from all sorts of horrendous conditions. We've rescued them from circuses, from laboratories, the illegal pet trade. We work with a charity called AAP, who are based in the Netherlands, and they rescue these monkeys and they re-socialise them into family groups. In fact, they even have rescued chimpanzees from laboratories, believe it or not, that were used for medical research. Some of them were deliberately infected with HIV, and that makes them very risky, of course, for their caretakers to work with them. Chimpanzees can spit, and they can spit blood into their caretakers' eyes and things like that. But because they had contributed so much to medical research and science, which ultimately benefits us, AAP believe that these animals deserve a second chance at life, and that's what they do. So they have this incredible complex where it's you can imagine it's top security, top biological security as well, to keep people safe also. The animal caregivers go in full PPE, they've got face masks, eye protection, you name it. It's, they're very brave people working with these animals, but they do fantastic work. A lot of the primates in their care have been horrendously traumatised. We've had primates here at Wild Ireland that have come from there that have had uncertain past, that we don't know what trauma they suffered, but some of them displayed like self-harming behaviour, so just like people. We had monkeys here that used to hit themselves, slap themselves, bite their hands, bite their legs, to the point where they would actually bleed. And it's quite distressing to look at. But by providing a natural habitat like this island that you can see with natural trees, opportunities to climb.
Lots of space.
Space is key. There's stimulation. You can see the ducks and the swans and the goats and all sorts of things to look at.
One of the things you wanted to do was to have a park for species and animals that were native to Ireland, like going right back even bears and wolves. Are people a bit surprised to see monkeys here?
They are. Ultimately, we are a sanctuary, but the Barbary macaque, actually, of all the primates, actually has some links to this part of the world, believe it or not. They were never native to Ireland, but the fossil record shows us that they did at one time range right across Europe, up into the United Kingdom as well. There have been fossils there found as far north as Norfolk. So they're very well able to cope with the cold climate. They just never made it to Ireland. But believe it or not, there have been some fossils of them found here in Ireland, but dating back to around about 2,000 years. I think that particular one was found in Navan Fort in County Armagh.
Would they've been traded, or?
Exactly. It showed that there were trade routes between Northern Ireland and the Mediterranean 2,000 years ago, that they weren't aware of that, so it was quite a surprise and a great discovery to find us. You can imagine a Barbary macaque running around Ireland 2,000 years ago. It's a pretty incredible sight.
Cuchulain's pet.
Absolutely, yeah.
At Navan Fort. This is all so far away career-wise for you from what you started out doing. You trained as a solicitor.
I guess this is where I started. This is where my heart lay. I think all children are born with a natural love of animals. It's just lost in most people. There's other distractions with life. I think I was lucky enough to hold on to that love of animals, and my parents nurtured it. But as I got older, then I realised that I needed to get a job and a mortgage and all of that. So my father is a solicitor, so I went down the legal profession route. I qualified as a solicitor in 2014.
So all the time then that you were working as a solicitor, this was really the game plan for you? Did you feel this working as a solicitor is just a stopgap?
I really enjoyed working as a solicitor. I loved the challenge of it. I loved working with people. I loved being in the courts, the excitement, the thrill of all of that. But I guess this is where my heart always lay, with the animals. And I was just really lucky that I was able to make my childhood dream come true.
When you finally got to open up this place, and you've put a huge amount of work and investment and everything into it, it is about running a business. Did that come easily to you, or were you a bit scared about that?
I guess it was never opened with the intention of being a business. It was primarily as an animal sanctuary, and if I have the money to feed myself and feed my animals, then I'm happy. But as you rightly point out, there are a lot of costs associated with running this place. You can imagine how much it costs to feed all of these animals, and then there's a staff of 22 people here running the place. So it does have to function like a business, and I have to have money at the end of the week to buy in all the feeds and pay the animal caregivers here.
And timing, of course, is everything. You quit your job, you got the place up and running, and then COVID hit.
COVID hit, yeah. It was dreadful timing. The gates closed, and I had to work out how I was going to feed all of these animals. A lot of the staff left. I was actually here on my own, looking after all of the animals on my own, right through COVID. It was a strange time. We were all afraid to go outside the door, but when I came in here and I locked the gates and it was just me and all these dangerous animals, believe it or not, I felt very safe in here.
But you must have had financing, loans, bills to pay. Every week you've got to fork out the money for all of the food that it takes to keep these animals going. Was that a real stress and a worry?
Absolutely, you know, these animals became a part of my family. They weren't just bears and wolves anymore. They were Donegal, Rianach, Oisín, Fergus, Finn. You know, they were part of my family, and I guess a lot of people might have thrown in the towel, but I wasn't prepared to give up on family. And that's just really where the doggedness in me kicked in. I said, right, how am I going to feed these animals? So that's where we went online. We pushed our toys. We got the toys onto the Late Late Toy Show, and yeah.
We were busy.
We were busy, yeah, we were busy. Myself and my wife were sitting up to 2 o'clock in the morning running, packaging parcels for the online shop, which kept us going.
But during that very strange time for everyone, you were in here every day taking a certain amount of solace from bears and wolves. Can we go and see the bears?
Of course, yes.
Great. I see these big goats here, Killian.
Yes.
What kind of goats are they?
So they're old Irish goats, and they're our native breed of goat. They've been in Ireland since the Neolithic times. The first people that came to this island brought their goats with them. They've become perfectly adapted to our climate. They've got a waterproof coat, and of course they have these huge big horns that would have protected them from wolves just a few hundred years ago. They would have shared this island with wolves for thousands of years, and they were believed to have gone extinct. And then they were rediscovered in Mulranny, County Mayo. The interesting thing about them is they were very important to the Irish people during the famine. They'd been evicted from their lands, they had nowhere to graze cattle or sheep, but families that had goats could graze them along the sides of the road, and that's why they became known as the poor man's cow, and the road became known as the Long Acre. So a lot of people can owe their survival to these animals. There's a bear there. 2 bears.
Oh, I see them now.
Donica, come on. Hello.
That's Donegal.
This is Donica and this is Rena.
I'm not sure he looks like a Donegal.
Well, it means brown-haired warrior.
He looks like he could just rip the limbs clean off me in a split second.
He's incredibly powerful. Yeah, he's a big animal, as you can see. But what you see today is not the Donegal that we first met when he arrived here after living his entire life in a small concrete cage with iron bars. He had never experienced the outdoors, and believe it or not, he was suffering from agoraphobia. He was afraid to go out into the open. When we opened the gate to let him out into this natural habitat, when his paw touched the ground, the grass moved under his feet, and he'd never felt that sensation before, and he retracted his paw. He had never learned how to swim or climb or do anything that a bear should do or would do in the wild. So moving here has been an education for him and his sister.
Are you scared of them? I mean, they're unpredictable. Even if they sort of get a bit used to, whoever handlers are coming in to feed them or set that, do you have to just be on your guard constantly?
I'm not afraid of them, but we do have to respect them. So we never share space with the bears. We never force them to interact with us or any silly things like that you see on TV or Netflix recently. No, the bears are kept wild here, and they're allowed to act natural, which is fantastic to see.
And you're trying to get more bears in, and if you are successful in that, you'll have to, I presume, increase the infrastructure for them.
Exactly. We're trying to rescue 2 bears. Their names are Boo and Teopa, and they're in a little rescue centre in Dagestan that was really built and designed for dogs and cats and horses. And this lady with a big heart took them in. They've now grown to a size where she can't really look after them properly anymore. So Boo lives indoors all of the time in a small stable. She's doing her best to look after them. Teopa lives outdoors in basically a steel cage. There's no roof, so he's exposed to the elements. In the winter it gets very cold in Dagestan, and in the summertime it gets very hot. So this poor bear is out in the elements 24/7. It's quite pathetic to look at, and I committed to rescuing the bears before what happened in the world, and Putin did what he did. So the war obviously makes it very difficult to get the bears out of Russia. Added to that, the rising cost of living, and the price of steel has rocketed. You can see.
And when we have a sort of a ban on Russian imports, nobody's thinking that bears might be part of
exactly, and they're classed as Russian goods, although there are some exemptions in place for humans and animals that are coming in need of rescue. So we're hopeful we'll get over that. The problem is the spiralling costs. We've had to send money out to Russia as well to build transport crates that the bears will travel to Ireland in. They'll travel by road, believe it or not, which makes it even more difficult. They'll have to skirt around Ukraine rather than come on the direct route through Ukraine. So it's a very, very difficult operation. Again, it's one of those things that I'm not prepared to give up on these two bears. I've committed to rescuing them. But to give you an example, it's the holding pen that you can see behind there. That's one of the places that we can put the bears for their safety and our safety. To recreate that cost €16,000 4 years ago. To recreate that today, we got a quote recently for 40-odd thousand euros. So that's for the exact same thing. So to build a new bear habitat here is going to cost the guts of 100,000.
You must be affected as well financially, Killian, by lots of rising costs, but even food.
Yes.
I mean, the kind of food that you have to feed these animals, it must be going up in price as well.
Yeah, grain's the big one. That's going up. The cost of fruit and vegetables, and even transporting the fruit and vegetables to us has gone up in price as well. So yeah, look, like everybody else, we're really feeling the pinch here.
Of all the animals here, if you had a favourite, what would it be?
I couldn't. That's like asking which would be your favourite child. But I suppose I have a special affinity with wolves, and I love my wolf pack. I raised them from cubs, so I do have there's a special place in my heart for the wolf.
Can we go and see those?
Of course, yeah.
Wow, these look impressive. They're huge.
They are. A lot of people are surprised to see how big wolves are. They have this idea in their head that they're going to be German Shepherd or Husky size, but as you can see, they're considerably bigger.
That's no German Shepherd. There are two brown and one very white looking ones. Different type, is it?
He's a different subspecies of wolf. So the two brown and grey wolves are the European wolf, and this is a species that was once native to Ireland. Ireland was once known as Wolfland, believe it or not, because there were so many wolves here. And the Irish people respected and revered the wolf. They called them Mac Tír, which was a term of royalty. They were the son of the land or son of the country, and they were respected and revered as such. The Irish people didn't even hunt them. They went extinct. It was really Oliver Cromwell. When he came across, he put the final nail in the coffin. He put a bounty on their heads, and very soon after that, the last wolf was shot in County Carlow. So,
would you have a particularly close relationship with these wolves?
I do. I raised these wolves from cubs. Unlike what we learned in school in the fairy tales, wolves are not the big bad wolf. They're not going to eat your granny or huff and puff and blow your house down. Generally in the wild, wolves avoid people at all costs.
We all associate them with howling, and that sounds, and again the scary image of nighttime and so forth. But do these howl a lot?
They do. So they howl for three reasons. One is to socialise. So they'll all, like us having a sing song. They'll also howl to mark their territory. So when they're howling, they're telling all the other wolves that are potentially in the area not to come in here. This is our territory, and you're going to be met with a fight. And then the third reason is when they get separated from their pack, they'll howl and shout, "Where are you? We're over here." that's one of the things. So yeah, they do. They love to howl, and they love to howl with me as well. So I can give it a go here.
Can you get them to howl?
I can try. Go for it.
You've got them totally pumped now.
They're socialising, and they're wagging their tails, and their ears are back, and they're licking each other's faces. And it's just exactly as I say, like a sing-song.
I presume they won't do that for everyone.
Well, the problem is we ask the general public not to howl at them because they know me, and they know when I howl it's a social thing. But if they had 30 kids here all howling at them, in their head that's 30 wolves in their territory, and it can stress them out. So we do ask the public not to howl.
That is definitely their territory.
Yeah. All right.
When you were setting up the place, what did neighbours think in the area of the idea of bears and wolves a field or two away?
Well, we're quite fortunate that we don't have any close neighbours. So we didn't have any real objections, and in fact our neighbours over this way they love this sound. They can hear it from their house despite living quite far away.
It's been a real baptism of fire setting up this place, getting it up and running, COVID, all the challenges. If you had a chance to rethink it, would you do it again?
Absolutely, 110%. I would be exactly where I am now. Yeah, it's been an emotional, stressful, difficult journey to get to here, but it's been the best time of my life. And to see the animals here in the forest and see the rehabilitation back to being somewhat wild animals, and then of course to see the reaction from the public has made it all worth it.
Well, Killian, it's extraordinary what you've done and what you've achieved. Congratulations with that, and the very best of luck with the whole project in the future.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Well, it really is a beautiful place up there. And as for the wolf song, I think we've probably heard worse singing at a wedding. Thanks to Jim Doherty for recording the audio on that.